Merrill's Music Room. Today is Tuesday, and we are going to be talking about an instrument in the woodwind family, and that instrument is the flute. Now, for my 4th, 5th graders, and anyone that had me last year in 4th or 5th grade, we have played a type of flute in the music room, and it is called the recorder. And the recorder is a little different than this flute because it gets played down like this, whereas this flute actually is played sideways like this. Now, one thing you're going to notice about the flute is that it is made out of metal. Almost all flutes that you will see in bands or orchestras will be made out of metal, and that's because it's much more durable, and there are a lot of keys on this instrument, and because they're made of metal, they're easier to maintain, and they're easier to produce, and you don't have to worry about them breaking quite as much. Now, most of the instruments in the woodwind family use the reed to make it sound. We talked about that last week with the clarinet. That's that thin piece of wood that makes the sound. The flute is a little different because it does not do that. It produces its sound a completely different way. And the way it works is that there's a little hole up here at the top of the mouthpiece, and if you do the correct embouchure and you blow through it, it's going to separate the column of air going through this little hole, and it will cause vibrations to run through the instrument. The buttons just make the instrument longer and shorter. The shorter the instrument, the higher it's going to be. The longer the instrument, the lower it's going to be, just like every other instrument that we have talked about. You can produce the same kind of sound as the flute if you have an empty Coke bottle or something with a small opening at the top. And if you blow over it, it will produce a open sound. Let me see if I can produce that for you. It'll make it sound kind of like that. It won't sound as good as this instrument, but that's because this instrument is made specifically to make those kinds of sounds. Now, the reason that this instrument is a part of the woodwind family is not because it produces its sound the same way as the woodwind family, but because of what it used to traditionally be made out of. So before we could make flutes like this out of metal with all these intricate parts, flutes were made out of wood. Depending on the culture of the instrument, a lot of them would be made out of either thin reeds, or in Japan they have a lot of types of flutes that are made out of bamboo, such as the shakuhachi flute. And they are very, very interesting instruments. So back when the flute was first being developed, the people that were making them had to use materials that were readily available. And metal, especially the ability to produce very delicate metal work like the flute requires, was not possible. So they would use wood, and it would just be a hollow cylinder, kind of like the didgeridoo that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And they would drill holes into them to make the different notes. And like I said, if you put all your fingers down, you make the instrument longer, and that makes it lower. And if you take all your fingers up, it makes the instrument shorter, and that makes it higher, which is really, really cool. So the reason the flute is a part of the woodwind family, despite not having a reed, is actually because of its history. And its history is that it used to be made primarily out of wood until we got really good at metalworking. There is another instrument in the woodwind family that is also made out of metal, as many of you guys will know the instrument. It's called the saxophone. You do not see saxophones very often in orchestras, and that's because it's a very young instrument. So a lot of the big orchestral works that are played nowadays are not scored to include a saxophone. But you'll notice that the saxophone is also going to be made out of metal, usually more of a yellow metal. But it also uses a reed to make it sound. So it's kind of a hybrid between the metal of the flute, but also still using the reed to create its sound. Now, I have been really good about getting to play all the instruments for you guys so far that we've been able to see. That won't always be the case. And this is one of those instruments where I will not be able to play it for you because despite all my efforts and practicing on it, I am not very good at the flute. I can very inconsistently make sounds on it. So I asked a friend of mine, who's a very wonderful flute player, to play us an excerpt on the flute so I could show you guys what it sounds like. So I am going to pass off the video right now to Miss Mason, Amy Mason, as you guys know her as Principal Mason at Madison County Elementary School, and she is going to demonstrate a piece on the flute for you guys to see. So check that out, and I will see you guys